about motherhood. 1 minute, you're mom of the year.
I love you, Mommy.
Then the next, not so much. From bath time to bullying, from potty training to puberty, parenting is full of challenges. But one thing is for certain, you are not alone. Welcome to Modern Mom Probs. I'm your host, author, mother, parenting expert, Tara Clark. Join me while we tackle today's modern mom problems. Dr. Z, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to be connecting with you today and chatting about one of the biggest modern mom problems right now, and that is focus and our attention.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to write your new book, Finding Focus.
Well, I'm a behavioral scientist, a mom of three. I have currently a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And all of my clients, all these companies I was working with, everybody always says how burnt out they are and anxious. And it's just a constant sort of barrage of feeling so conflicted between all the things we have to always do. And I started to think about, what is the common thread? It can't just be not liking our jobs or not, feeling up to speed or being tired. It's got to be something underneath all of this. And I really think, as I started peeling the layers and the onion, so to speak, as I say, I really came to, at the core, what I think to be really the foundational issue of our generation is our lack of focus, our inability to sustain focus in any one moment because we're constantly being pulled in so many different directions. I think really that's at the core of all of the exhaustion and feelings of overwhelm. And it's almost what I feel to be an attention epidemic. And everyone feels it. It's a domino effect. It's not just us, it's everyone around us and our kids and all the things. So, I'm a mom. I'm a working mom. And I've also been through some serious personal upheaval from the Palisades fires. So I know what it means to be pulled in all these different directions and still expected to be, calm and contained and guide and be present. And so I wrote this book as sort of a lifeline.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you did. I've gotten so much out of it already, but we're going to talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
I recently had a conversation with a woman who's a podcaster. Her name is Danielle Elliott. And we were talking about ADHD in women. And she had a really interesting point. And she said when her mother was the PTA president and the class parent and doing all of those things back in the, let's say, 80s or 90s, her mother was not receiving calls or notifications or messages from a phone asking her to do all of these other things. And it made me think, my light bulb sort of went off and I was like, yes, like that's the thing. It's like nowadays it is so hard to be all in what you're doing at any given moment, and people often ask me like, oh, Tara, like, what's the key to like work-life balance? And I often say like, it's not work-life balance, it's work-life harmony. And I talk about its effectiveness. And it's like, when I am working, I am all in on work. And when I'm momming, I am all in on momming. And it's when your attention is pulled in those different directions and you're having this sort of like battle, for lack of a better word, this battle in your mind of like, well, I have to respond back to that email and I also want to sit with my son and hang out with him for a little while and all of those things. And like that makes us so much less effective. But then also I think that it leads to anxiety. And this is just me anecdotally saying this, like leads to more anxiety, leads to higher stress and all of those things. And you see it on a grander scale. You see it as a clinician, right? I'm sure your patients are probably coming to you and saying like, hey, what do we do about this?
I mean, listen, the world has been engineered to distract us. Our time and our attention has been hijacked in a very intentional way. So this isn't like a time management issue or something we're necessarily doing wrong. I really urge everyone to understand that this distraction is it's a crisis, and it's eroding our ability to form deep connections with ourselves and with others. And because of what you're talking about, because we're constantly torn in a million different directions and everything feels urgent. That's the other thing. It's like everything feels like it needs our attention immediately. We've never had to live like this before. And so our brain is exhausted, and emotionally we are totally depleted and fragmented and drained. And that's not a personal problem. This is something that every single one of us is experiencing because our world doesn't allow us to slow down, right? So you have to take back control. This book is not a book about productivity and how to do more, more, more. This is actually almost the opposite. It's like, how do we reclaim our attention and live a life that's actually ours and doesn't feel like we're just throwing it in a million different directions?
Yeah. Do you think it's primarily smartphone based? Is that what it is? Like, what is the source of it?
I think devices and tech is a huge part of it, but I also don't think it's the only thing. I think that it's the tech piece is a symptom of a bigger issue. I think we're actually running away from discomfort, and devices have become a pacifier for us not to feel and not to have to address like the deeper stuff. It's a very easy way to just like not have to deal with our partner or any hard conversations, or, you know, if our kid is melting down, you know, it's like, it's just also become sort of addictive to have that available to just be able to tune out. But I think a bigger level of this is also the fact that, you know, we have a million things on our to-do list, and busyness has always been worn as sort of this badge of honor, right? And it's like like I'm super productive, I can multitask. Well, really it's breaking us down, but we carry productivity almost as like a shield and a mask in a way. And that's really, I think, at the core is what we've sacrificed is really our presence for our availability. And that's really what it is. So it's not just devices. It's like everything we say yes to. Everything we feel, right? Like, and we say yes, maybe, and I'm just like planting a seed, but maybe it's because we don't actually want to deal with some of the trickier stuff that we would be confronted with. Have we slow down for a minute, right? So we get on the treadmill because partly it's our world and we have to. Like I sometimes look at my life and I think like, I don't have a choice. Like I can't just plug out. I can't just stop parenting and stop showing up and stop working, like, you know? Yeah. And then partly it's maybe maybe we're trying to escape from things that are a little trickier to deal with, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's so many things that you're saying that are resonating with me right now. And it comes back to my mom. I'm thinking about my mom as you're talking about this. A couple of reasons. One, she doesn't have a smartphone. My mother has no internet access by choice. She has a flip phone that I pay for, and she likes it that way. And that's what it is. She'll ask about internet things. She knows like what Google is. She watches television. So she sees what people are talking about on TikTok, whatever. She's actually never experienced it, but she knows what it is. And I sometimes feel so jealous that the fact that she's caught in like 1992 and is so pleasantly like unaware of just like all of the stuff that we deal with like that. And so, yeah, I'm sort of jealous of that for her. And then I also was thinking about her when I was younger. My parents were divorced, and my mom's a single mom, and she worked a ton. One, because she had to afford everything. And two, because I think it was easier for her to go to work than it was to have to take care of domestic things. So then like the domestic things like fell on me, which was fine because that's just what it was. But sometimes that's what it is. Like it is easier to go get dressed and go out to work and do your 9-to-5 job than it is to have to like take care of things at home. And so I was thinking about that as you were saying that. And then my other thought was, and I'm like all over the place today, but bear with me. Speaking of focus, right? But my other thing I was thinking is that when my son was in public school, he's currently in a private school, but when he was in public school, we were on the train. I'm using that in quotes. We were doing all the things. I was president of the PTA for 2 years at a very high level. We had a huge operating budget. It was like having like a full-time job in addition to everything else that I do. And it was a lot. It was so much. You were pulled in so many different directions. And then when we switched schools and put him into the private school, we got off of that train. We got off of that competitiveness train. I got off of the PTA train. We just got off the train as a family. We just said, okay, next stop, this is us. And we just jumped off the train altogether. And in doing that, and in taking a step back, was everything. It was everything for the mental health of our family.
Yeah, no, I mean, you said so much there that I want to respond to, but even just building off of that, I mean, I think, I talk a lot about editing our life and editing our feed, editing our calendar, editing our responsibilities, editing what we've said yes to. Like we have an obligation, not just like you should sometimes. Like needs to be a weekly practice of editing, right? Like just take off a bunch of people that you follow that don't make you feel great about yourself on social media. You know what I mean? But also edit your contact list, edit who you're receiving texts from constantly, like edit your responsibilities. Like we need to sort of taper down in order to make sort of breathing room so we can function and find time for the things that actually really matter. I think that's a really important piece of all of this.
It is, because nowadays our contacts and our networks, I should say, are so huge. Like think about your not only in-person friends, right? Your children's friends' parents, your personal friends, friends of friends that you know in real life. And then add on that, all of our internet friends, your Instagram friends,
right?
And then people who are friends of friends, maybe that you know through LinkedIn, and the network just grows and grows and grows. And so then those people are reaching out to you, they're texting you, they're saying, congratulations on the book. They're saying, hey, checking in about the house, like all those different things. Like our networks are so huge nowadays. I struggle with it sometimes to edit down, as you're saying, to sort of like cut through the noise on who really matters the most and where I should be like allocating my time, because so many people are reaching out at any given moment.
So that's so true. And I often say, like, we live digital life, physical life, and there's this in between. I talk about this in the book. And it's like we're constantly in this in between state where we're flittering between these two very different ways of functioning and living and maintaining. And it's exhausting because the physical world is hard enough. And then it's like, wait, there's all this digital noise. And so I think what's really important to remember too, a big piece of this that we don't often think about, is that our digital relationships are fine and they create lovely communities. And I'm certainly grateful for mine. And that's like, so much of my work is online too, and providing space and resources for communities. But those connections are very surface level. And so they they trick our brain into us feeling like we have a lot of connection and we're somewhat fulfilled. It's like this really quick dopamine hit, but it's not deep and it's not lasting. And it's not what our brain and our heart needs to feel this sustained contentment. Right. And so that's also at the core of a lot of the loneliness that we feel. Like we're so connected, we have such a big network, but yet we're kind of all feeling somewhat alone, and that we don't have these really deeper connections, which we really need and thrive from as human beings. We need those deep, deep, deep sort of intimate relationships. And those are really falling to the wayside. And that's important to remember, especially as moms too, that, we need to maintain those core connections on a much bigger scale. The other thing I wanted to point to with regard to like all, the digital world and all the things is like, as kids, we never had to compete with attention with our parents, right? Like, yes, they had phone calls and friends that came in, whatever, but there was never this easy way for them to show us that what we're saying is annoying or sort of irrelevant, or like they need to, it's how often and I do it too, by the way. We're all to blame, but it's like I'm on my phone working and trying to multitask and my kid is trying to say something. And then all of a sudden, Mom, put down the phone. I'm talking to you. Right? Like how many times have we heard that? And it literally breaks me in a million pieces. Like
it breaks your heart.
Right. And I'm in the world. Like I know not to do that. And yet here I am, torn because of all the urgency and, my husband asking me to do something and my this and my work, and it's like, wait a minute, now they live with this incessant sort of ache and competition to matter, right, in our lives, and to be louder and to be more seen and to get more attention. And so sometimes we're seeing right now behavior, right, escalating and suffering because there's like this emptiness, like I have to get my mom's attention. How am I going to do that? And sometimes negative attention is attention, right? And so there's that piece as mothers and parents specifically that we also have to think about a lot.
Oh, it's so true.
I know.
I don't think that I've ever heard it articulated so beautifully as you did right there.
Aww.
Because sometimes people just say, like, put your phone down. And it's like, yes, but why? Like, because you need to be present, and your child can then internalize that down the road. Like that you just blew my mind on that one there.
Yeah. And and again, like, I don't want it to feel like it's homework or forced, but
or
really,
mom shaming or anything like that.
No, because hey, we're all in it, but really it's about the message. Yeah. It's not even about the behavior. It is what you're telling your kid without saying anything. You're telling them that other things take precedent, and you don't mean to make them feel that way, obviously, but they can't feel important to you unless you actually are displaying that importance, right? And it's something that they feel in their bones. I always tell parents, I give this little example, and it's not necessarily to do with digital, but how many times, like when our kids are little, we sort of rush to help them tie their laces when they're about, they're learning, and we just need to get out the door and get them to school, right? And It's like, I always tell parents, you're not just blocking them from practicing the behavior. You're actually showing them that you don't believe they're competent. You don't trust their competence. And so eventually they'll learn to tie their laces. But what's left inside is them having this weird feeling that they can't do it, that they can't ultimately do it because you did it for them so many times. And you were just trying to get out the door. By the way, we've all done it. Like, again, no shame here. You were just trying to get out the door, get them to school on time, whatever it was. But they're left with that ache. And that's kind of also, if we correlate that to phone usage and device usage in front of our kids. And again, I'm right there with you, but it's like they're even though we say, oh, you're more important, you're the most important thing to me, I love you so much, whatever it is, they see something different and they're left with that ache. And then it's like, how do we repair that? And we totally can, by the way, but it just takes effort and intention. And that's really the book too. It's like, I can give you a million hacks in the world, but it's more about how do we intentionally stay present in our world, whatever it is we're doing. That's what we've lost touch with. And that's what I want to give you back.
That's a gift. I think that having the ability to just simply be is such a gift in today's world.
And it's something that's really hard for us to do because we've trained our brain to do the exact opposite.
Yeah. So it's a perfect lead into my next question is how do we unwire? Is that a word? Rewire is the word. How do we rewire our brain to just sit and be?
Well, and so I think it's really important for everyone listening to understand or watching that we are so powerful. We have so much agency, and we can absolutely change at any age, any stage, no matter what, because our brain is a muscle, and what we use grows connections and strengthens. It's a very complex, but very simple thing, right? And it is the coolest thing about being human, I think, as a neuropsychologist. So we have a lot of power. This is not a hopeless thing. And like, if your kid's a teen and you feel like they've already, it's done and there's nothing you can do, wrong. There's so much you can do. And so I think, in order to start to rewire this attention issue that we all have, by the way, I think, something really, really simple, but very powerful is what I call a little focus fast. It's for just even 24 hours, or even start with 4 hours, right? Starts really small. Take a break from just one source of distraction. So maybe it is social media. Maybe it's your email. Maybe it's the news. Maybe you're someone who always has the news on in the background and you don't realize it's totally distracting, but it is. I'm telling you it is.
It is. It is.
there's
If
any
you don't
question-
know, guess what? It is. Yeah.
So it's not about punishing yourself. It's about sort of seeing and feeling what surfaces when you remove that noise, when you remove that pacifier. It can be really, really enlightening. The discomfort that comes from sitting in those moments of like, wait, I'm so used to having the news on, and now it's silent and I don't even know what to do or how to think or where to be. And instead of approaching it with negativity, like that's so bad, I've been doing it wrong. That's not at all what I'm saying. Approach yourself with curiosity. That's the key. Approach it with curiosity, like you would your best friend. You wouldn't shame her, right? You would just be like, hey, wow, that's interesting that now you feel really weird when you don't have the news on. Like, let's talk about that. Right. And so that's something that you can do just to kind of see what's there. And then I do talk about in the book. I do provide, of course, very specific tools and things that we can do to gain back our control of our attention and our focus, without being overwhelming about it, because I don't want to give you more things to do. But I do think that this is incredibly important to build back this skill of intentionality. Do you know what I mean? So I do recommend sort of thinking about and tracking your distractions for a few days, like literally jot down every time your attention gets hijacked. Like what's pulling you away, right? Like what is it? The kids, the phone?
It would be as long as War and Peace. You know how long that would be?
But just like, it's almost like it's about getting really honest about where your energy is going, because some of us have no idea what it is that we're so distracted with. But we just are. And I hear that all the time. It's like, I'm constantly like thinking about other things. And when I sit down for a second, I feel like I have to grab my phone. Right? Okay. That's the distraction. So you might vilify your phone, but really it's not your phone when you actually get curious about it, right? It's the fact that you can't tolerate the discomfort of not having something to do in that moment, partly because your brain is so used to just doing a million things at once, and we've trained ourselves to do that. And partly also, like I was saying, it's hard to face yourself a little bit in a world where we aren't held accountable for ourselves, right? We don't have to be.
Right, exactly.
So,
and where productivity is so rewarded, rest sometimes can be vilified. I'm using that in quotes.
Yes.
So you're like, of course I'm going to lean towards being productive, even if it's busy work.
Correct. Yeah. And that's a big piece also of sort of unraveling the myths that we're fed as moms, as women, like the myth of multitasking. And like, how many women have you talked to? You're like, oh, I'm so good at multitasking. I can do a million things at one time. I got it down. And I always hear that. I'm like, yes, I thought the same. But then really, when you dig into it, our brain isn't actually being productive at anything. And so I have a whole thing about that in the book as well, and kind of reframing that for us. And it's really powerful when you start to single task and really focus on what, or pay attention to whatever it is at the moment that you're doing. What comes of that? It's so powerful. It's just so
it's really hard to do. It's really hard to do, but I can say that it feels really good when you are able to focus and you get into a flow state with something, and then you're like in it. And then sometimes it's hard to like, when you have a distraction, or you're like, oh no, I got to go pick up the kids from school now, something like that, then it like breaks that flow state. But I'm always very grateful when I could actually, and it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens from time to time, when I really get into it and I'm like locked in.
Right. And that's also because your brain is rewarded, right? And so your cortisol, your stress hormones start to lower because you're fulfilled on some level, right? Like when you're focused and you can sustain focus for even a short amount of time, it's like all of a sudden it's like you can breathe a little easier. Everything starts to, your nervous system starts to relax. And there's a very scientific reason for that. And a lot of it is hormonal. Right. And so we're more regulated when we're able to focus too. And that's a piece of it that's very specific to women as we approach perimenopause and menopause and all of these fun things that we get to deal with.
Yay!
But and menopause is really on the forefront of conversation now, which is amazing and so important. But we also have to realize from a mental health aspect that a lot of these hormonal shifts can somewhat be modulated by sustaining focus and learning to regulate our nervous system in the process. Because when we're frazzled and we're multitasking and task switching, we're doing the exact opposite. And it's impossible for our hormones to regulate within that kind of system.
That totally makes sense. In many of the conversations around menopause and perimenopause that I've had, brain fog keeps coming up as a conversation over and over again.
Sure.
Excuse me. And I wonder how brain fog and focus and menopause all sort of are related together.
I mean, it's brain fog can be very hormonal. It can also be a direct sort of symptom of our nervous system dysregulation. We go into numbness and shutdown when we're overwhelmed. And oftentimes, we are living at a baseline level of overwhelm. Like we've sort of decided that that's okay and that's the norm and that's kind of
this is our baseline now. This is just what it is.
My life, it's like this is what's the norm. But just because it's common doesn't mean it's okay, right? That's so this is not a healthy way to function. This is just what we've decided because it's all something that we're experiencing, and that's not okay either. So the brain fog can be significantly quelled by learning to our sustained focus and to grab that skill back. It's not like we don't know how to do it. We do. It's in our ecosystem. It's in our DNA. It's what we're supposed to do as human beings. So we just need to take it back and learn how to do that.
I love that. In the book, you talk about 4 F's. You have a framework, and I want to break that down. What are the 4 F's and how can we employ them?
Okay. So basically it's a framework when you're overwhelmed to ask yourself, like, do I need to fight this, flee, fix, or forget? So it's just like it's almost like triage. Like when you're going through a medical issue, it's kind of a similar process that doctors do, but it's almost like a mental health piece. It's like, it's in the moment, make a conscious decision about where your attention belongs. Fight, flee, fix, or forget. Because everything feels like a lot and it feels very important. But that's a false sense of importance. And I always say, like, their emergency does not mean your urgency or however you want to frame that. It's like not everything requires your time. And I have a very systematic way of working through that I teach in the book. How do we decide? Because I too have a list of to-dos, right? And it's like everything feels like an urgent priority to me. But when I really dig into it, it's not. It's just not. And it's more about my discomfort with leaving people hanging or not replying immediately. It's the same thing when we get a million texts and I'm like, oh my God, I have to respond immediately. But no, actually, I don't. I don't, right? Because nobody really communicates via email anymore. So it's like, wait, I need to respond right away. Oh, wait, no, actually, I don't.
I know. I've been working on that myself because as a recovering people pleaser, I'm like, no, I have to respond. Oh, they're waiting for me. They're waiting with bated breath for my response to their email. And 9 times out of 10, they're not. No, they're not. They've just moved on to the next thing that they're working on. They also have a checklist and they're doing their checklist and I have to do my checklist. And unless you're like actively sort of in an email conversation back and forth, it doesn't matter. Like things can wait. You could sit on things. So I'm being very intentional lately about my response time on things.
That's good. And also, like, remember, texting used to be a tool for immediate responsiveness that was very quick and very short, and now it's replaced phone conversations. So it's a very different method of communication. And it's almost, and now emails have sort of gone more into just like primarily for work and tasking. And so it's a very different way of functioning that our brain is kind of catching up with, and it doesn't require immediacy anymore in the same way it used to.
No, it really doesn't. And I often think about, speaking of focus, I do Pilates many mornings during the week. And I have my watch where it's like recording my workout, but I also am receiving text messages or missed calls or anything like that.
Totally.
And oftentimes my mom will call in the morning and I'll see that she'll call and then she'll also send a follow-up text message because that's what she does. She has to like tag team me on both of those. And for a split second, my body, I could feel my hormones spike and they're like, oh, you got to call her back. And I'm like, no, I'm going to call her back when I'm finished with my class.
Right.
And I could sit and speak. And it's those types of distractions that I need to sort of like override. It's good. 100%. It's a double-edged sword. It's good that I can get the notification on my watch, and then it's bad that I can get the notification on my watch because it's pulling my attention away from the Pilates exercise that I'm doing. But I've been working. I've been much more intentional in setting boundaries about when I call back and when I respond and all of those things. And
totally.
And it's work. Like how people say like you have to do the work. Setting those types of boundaries with responding to people or not responding to people, depending on what you choose to do, takes a lot of work.
It's work, but it's work that pays off and work that becomes subconscious later. So you don't have to put in the work later. If you put in the work now on the front end and train your brain and train your sort of emotions, you don't have to put in the work consistently. You'll have to kind of upkeep a little bit, but it won't be as much work, right? And I just think it's important also to differentiate, as moms, we have a sort of a knee-jerk reaction to messaging too, because we have to be aware and on. If someone calls from school, if our kid is called, like we don't have the luxury to just log off and not be available for several days or hours, right? And so that's a very different way of functioning. I actually just spoke about this with my son yesterday. He's like, oh, I can't have we don't have devices in bedrooms.
Yeah.
And he said, Mom, but you do. You have your phone in your bedroom at night.
Your son sounds like my son.
Right. And I said, well, and I love that. I love that he's my mirror. And I said to him, yes, I do. And I do that because it is our hub from which I can make phone calls in emergencies, where I have access to the cameras, from which it is more of a monitor versus, I'm not communicating on my phone at night, and you don't get to see that because you're not in my bedroom late at night. Mm-hmm. But Dad, for example, does not have his phone, right? Like he doesn't have his phone. We just use my phone as the hub because like literally the house is controlled by now we have everything
it's
on
smart homes,
security, our house, everything. Mm-hmm. And that's again, a double-edged sword. It's I wish it weren't that way, but it is. But also as a mom, I have to be on. I have to know what's happening, right? I have to be able to get those communications and Pilates classes if God forbid something comes up. Of course, my husband does too, but it's like, there's something there. To
really, the school most likely will be calling you. So correct. We could be honest about that. And that's actually why I got the watch in the first place, because I wanted to be accessible when I would be places where I didn't necessarily have my phone out. And I can say, this was a few years ago, but I was out to lunch with a friend of mine and I looked down, we were just eating lunch. Everyone had their phones in their purses, whatever. I looked down at my watch and I got a call from the school. I had to go pick up my son. And that was like the most validating time that I ever had the watch, because I was like, look, see, I got it because I got the message and I picked up my son and he was all right, luckily. But, it's important.
But so it's important to understand there's just like a little extra piece that we have to do in terms of the work in evaluating urgency, because immediately we're gonna look at that notification to make sure it's not something that we have to address, right? That's life threatening or whatever for our family. And so there's just like an extra piece of that we have to tease out.
Exactly, which is tricky. But when I'm with you, Dr. Z, see, I don't have my watch on. I'm focused. I'm all in on you. My phone's over there. I'm all in.
It also depends on ages and stages. When you have little kids, it's a very different.
That's absolutely true, too. Especially when he was in preschool. That was actually sort of like Apple Watch days. But when he was in preschool, I would have been getting buzzes all day. All the time.
Like, how did our parents survive, right? It's like, well,
I know. I know. It's kind of wild. It's kind of wild because I also have a 12-year-old. So I understand the age and the timing and the focus of all of those things. And it's interesting with my son and many of his friends, I've been observing that we want to talk about focus and attention, that while they're playing video games, they're also watching YouTube. So they're splitting their focus in two ways of both like watching TV and then watching the screens and being all in on their, well, I'm using this really lightly, all in on their video games and then only half in on YouTube. And my husband saw my son doing that the other day because my son had seen his other friends doing that. And he was like, no, stop it. Like, you're either going to watch television or you're going to play your game. You're not going to do both simultaneously. It's just simply not healthy for your brain. And I'm glad that my husband spoke up and said something about it.
That's great. I mean, I think that's really important. The triple screening, double, quadruple, it's just not, not.
Yeah, they're like all over. I mean, they're like surrounded by screens, these kids, and it's like too much. You have to pull back.
Right, because they're also training their brain to need that now. And so that becomes that's just a recipe for a lifetime of attention issues, right? Because now they're training their brain at a very young age to constantly be in between these different realities. And they're already doing so much on the video game. And then there's this other screen. It's just too much. It's unhealthy. And I'm a huge fan of single screening if you are going to be doing something like that.
Yeah, I agree. And even for me, sometimes if I'm watching television, I don't want to be scrolling my phone while I'm watching television for that same reason.
Exactly.
Like, that's not healthy for me either. And I know so many times we as adults, we as people, like do that. But in the long term, I feel like it can't possibly be good for our brains, right?
Because it's wiring the need for distraction. It's strengthening that. So whatever we do consistently is what our brain starts to need. Right. And so it's like the same idea when we wake in the morning. If the first thing we do is look at our phones, we're interrupting a natural progression of neurochemicals that are going to help us sustain focus. But if we look at our phone right away, it blocks it. And so that we're setting up our day for distraction. Versus if we wait a little bit, even like 15 minutes to pick up the phone, and then hopefully a little bit longer and then a little bit longer, then we're allowing our brain to naturally build up those chemicals and hormones we need to pay attention, to focus, to have a great day. And it's really just those little micro habits that are so impactful.
Yeah. In an ideal situation, at what point of the day after you wake up should you grab your phone?
I mean, the longer you wait, the better, to be honest. It just allows your body to do the things that it means to be human, to get sun on our face, to drink water, to interact with our loved ones if we have them still in our home, even just to be with ourselves, like to do whatever we want to do, to have coffee in peace and not be barraged by a million things. I'm a huge advocate of waiting, not just to touch your phone, but to look at news. I think, people make the mistake like first thing in the morning and not clicking on the news that it's like, oh, it's just our nervous system is not built to do that at all.
No.
And so if you find yourself frazzled and exhausted by 2:00, it's not just the norm. It's because you've set yourself up for that, right? And it's just too much. It's your nervous system is basically saying like, I'm done, I'm out. like I'm tapping out.
You're like, tap out.
It's too much. We're not meant to digest all of the stuff that now we can know about because of social media and because of the news and because things don't take time to travel anymore, right? So it's honestly, if you can wait an hour, that's amazing. If you can, it really depends, but I had a habit of looking at my phone every morning because I actually have family who lives internationally. And because of the time change, I would always feel like I was missing something if I didn't look at my phone right away and know if they're good or whatever they're dealing with. And so I've had to really work hard on training myself not to do that now that, they're older, whatever. And so it's an interesting thing. You just have to always be like aware of that's what I was saying, like do inventories of your habits and what it is that fuels you and feeds you and what doesn't.
I think that's the biggest takeaway, is to sort of for lack of a better term, audit your life,
Yeah.
right? You have to audit your behaviors. You have to not only audit, but edit, right? Audit and edit.
Edit and audit for sure. 100%. Because we also change and we're allowed to. And it's not about like being hard on yourself or shaming yourself. It's just about, again, approaching things with curiosity is really the key, and knowing that you can always make shifts. And usually those shifts are going to be for the better.
Yeah, I've been, especially in the last year or so, really intentional about my phone use on the weekends, right? Like when I receive my weekly digital report on my phone, because like most phones like show you, I don't know, Sundays or whatever it is. Like my during the week use is off the charts because I'm either like editing a video or working on something or reading through threads. And then my weekends are like an hour, maybe 90 minutes. It's wonderful. And I see that. I'm like, pat myself on the back. And I'm like, I wish I had more weekdays that reflect my weekend days, but that's not necessarily the case just by the nature of what I do for a living. But also, having said that, like my weekends are great because I'm not on my phone, because I am connecting with my family and we are doing things together and we're being present with each other and we're being intentional. And so it all reflects that. And my anxiety is down. I'm not, like you said, scrolling through the news, all of those kinds of things. And so it really makes a big difference. There was a sort of a social media trend the other day, and it starts off by saying like, you look happier. And then like the second line, people write like something different, right? And so I wrote like, you look happier. Thanks. I've been ignoring my phone and soaking up life's small joys. And that's true. It's like you cannot put a price on putting down your phone, ignoring your phone, and just soaking up the wonderful things in real life around you.
Well, yeah. And I think it's really important to also remember that awe, and like when I say awe, I mean just like seeing something interesting or beautiful, even for just a split second, is an antidote to anxiety. And so we don't allow ourselves that by constantly like looking at all these devices and being distracted and doing a million things at one time. It's not how we were meant to be human. It's not what it means to be human. And unfortunately, our lifestyle has become that. But we have a responsibility to take ownership of that and be more intentional about our output. And so when you say like your weekends are feel so much better to you than your weekdays, like it doesn't have to be so black and white either, right? And this is the first step. It's like you acknowledging that, knowing what it is and what that means and feeling the distinction. And then now saying to yourself, well, how can I move a little bit of the weekend into my weekday without impacting my work and my work product? And oftentimes when you do less and do it more intentionally, you actually do so much more in such a better way. But, nobody believes me when I say that. But then when they do it, it's like this huge aha. It's like, well, you were right.
You were right, Dr. Z. You knew it.
Dear. Thank you. Say that again.
No, it's true. That's what I was saying about the flow state earlier, is that like when I'm really like focused and working on a project, whether it's a writing project or it's an editing project, and you're really in it, there's something that is so validating in your body that like, this feels really good. I'm focused on what I'm doing and it feels great.
And try that with your partner and or your kids too. And it does not have to do with the length of time. We as mothers often feel very guilty for not spending a ton of time with any individual person. That's not what our kids need. They just need small chunks of sustained attention, and see how things shift. It is absolutely extraordinary how much your relationships will change when you make an intentional effort to sustain your attention with certain people.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to ask you a question that I ask all of my guests, and I'm super curious to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest modern mom problem right now?
Attention.
I knew it.
I do. I really do.
No, you're right. Yeah.
I mean,
go for it.
I just, it's like, it's an easy answer for me, but I work with hundreds and thousands of people because I don't just work with individuals. I also work with schools and companies and universities. And so I get big groups at one time. And I cannot tell you how many of us are right in there together, struggling so much with our world and our busyness and everything going on. And, I have to say this too, as we close up. Like I had someone approach me the other day to talk, and they said, there's so many hacks. There's so many things that I feel like I should be doing. There's so many things on my to-do list that I can never get to. What do I start with? Like, is it the red light or the green juice or the they're like, do I need the ice roller or like what, like a cold plunge? Like, I don't know what to do first. Like
I may or may not have all of those things in my house right now. Just so you know.
Do I now need to buy a sauna? Like, it's like, it's like, oh my God.
I'm dead.
And they looked so like exhausted just from thinking about it. And then like all these other people heard them say that. And then everybody, it was almost like this cacophony of thousands of voices. Me too, me too. What do I do? Tell me the first thing I should do. And I just wanted to hug everybody and cry together because isn't that the definition of what it means to be human right now? And I just want to tell you, like, none of that really matters. Like,
phew.
Like, really, it's great, fine, if you do it and it helps, lovely. But if you are killing yourself trying to get to that like ice plunge and whatever, and you are green juicing at the cost of like talking to your kid in the morning, like, stop, I have to green juice, I'll be right back. Like none of it matters. And it is not what it means to be human. And honestly, I believe that a lot of these hacks are actually distracting us from the core of what is actually going to benefit us. And what is going to benefit us is working on your sleep habits, getting water. It's
that's,
like
that's my biggest thing. People always say like, oh, Tara, like, what do you swear by?
Like,
and I really have to say is just drinking so much water. That is my ride or die.
Right. Like, start with the basics and connect with your loved ones, connect with yourself. Learn to retool your focus. It is a radical form of self-care to learn how to focus again. And that's honestly why I wrote the book too. It's like, I want you to feel like you can come back to yourself.
I adore you so much. And I adore this book. It has a 21-day plan in here too. So if people are like scared that they don't know like where to start, like there's a plan for you in the book.
Well, and I sort of felt like I thought of every mom, every person I knew. It's like, okay, I don't have time for this book, but like, can you just give me a few pages? And so I was like, all right, here's a few pages of where to start, but then please read the book because there's like a reason I wrote every single word with intention. And I hope it gives you as much as it gave me writing it.
I love it. I told my husband that he needs to read it because this is like so right up his alley. He always talks about attention and how it's our greatest commodity right now and all of those things. And so he's reading this now because I finished it. So
good.
I adore it. Tell everyone where we could find this book and where we could find you.
Anywhere books are sold is where you'll find the book. And you can find me at drzelana.com, drzelana.com. And on Instagram is actually a very vibrant community, very engaged. I give lots of free resources. And it's a beautiful space. So that is dr.zelana as well.
I love it. What a beautiful name. What's the origin of your name? That's the last question I'm going to ask you.
Eastern European.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah. Thank you.
Love, love, love it.
Thank you so much.
Croatian? Is it Croatian?
No, it's actually Russian.
Oh,
but don't hold that against me.
No, of course not. I wouldn't, I promise. You poor thing that you even did say.
I know. No, it's all good. But it's sort of a name like my parents essentially created.
I love it.
Based on family and whatnot. But yeah, thank you.
It's beautiful. And you are beautiful. And your book is beautiful. I adore you. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
It's such a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Modern Mom Probs. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive in today's problem with me, your host, Tara Clark. Join me next time when I'll be interviewing another great guest and tackling another modern mom problem. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review and a rating. As always, you could head over to Modern Mom Probs on Instagram and give me a follow, or check out my book, Modern Mom Probs, A Survival Guide for 21st Century Mothers, available online wherever books are sold. Well, that's it for today. See you next time, folks.